the Heroes and Legends of Greece talk show. Today we are joined by a very special guest, who is a well-known hero. Please welcome Odysseus. Hello, sir. How are you?
Well, I just killed a bunch of people, so I'm doing great.
Oh, that sounds lovely, sir. Hey Siri. Remind me to call the police later.
What kind of witchcraft black magic does that box contain?
Oh, I'll explain that later. It's not important. But first, I have a few questions for you.
Yes. Ask your questions. But first, since I'm a stranger here, where are my gifts?
Oh, I actually have one for you. Here you go.
What is this?
It's a gift for coming on the show.
Where's the gold?
Oh, the gold. Right. That is actually a special food that you just chew. You don't swallow it. Don't swallow it. It makes your breath smell nice.
I demand more.
But you can't have more. You'll choke.
Telemachus? Yeah, thanks. Give me the gun.
No! On to the actual questions, because that was a mess. Literally. Where did all your sorrow first begin?
Well, it all began when Menelaus' wife, Helen, ran off with a man named Paris.
And what do you think of Paris?
He deserves to go to Tartarus.
And why is that?
Well, he killed Achilles, he took Helen, and he's a coward.
Interesting. Very interesting. And can you tell me about the Battle of Troy?
Well, when we got to Troy, Achilles and Agamemnon got into a huge argument. After that, we had to deal with the plague that was...
Wait. I don't mean to interrupt, but what was the argument about?
Oh yes, so Achilles and Agamemnon were arguing over a female maid that belonged to Achilles. Agamemnon wanted her since he had lost his female maid because she was the daughter of one of Apollo's priests.
Okay, that's nice. And how did this affect the war?
Well, you see, Achilles was angry, and I cannot believe that man, but he left us for almost the whole rest of the war because of this argument. So we lost our best fighter.
And did this give the Trojans the upper hand?
Now, one might think so, but neither side was actually able to best the other in combat. You see, we pushed them far back to the walls of Troy. They pushed us far back to our black ships. We pushed and they pushed. It actually went on like that for several years.
Really? And do you know how long the war actually lasted?
Well, we lost count after about 5 years because that's when we got tired of celebrating birthdays. But if I had to guess, I'd say it lasted about 9 years.
Oh, that is quite some time. And the Greeks won the war, correct?
Yes, we snuck into Troy inside a giant wooden horse, which we tricked them into thinking was a gift for their temple. At night, when they were all in bed, we crept out of the horse, burned down the city, and Paris died.
I bet you just love that. Okay, and how did you end up on Calypso's island?
That's a very, very long story.
Well, how did you?
I'm going to tell you anyways. So one of the first places we went to after Troy was to a small island that turned out to be inhabited by a large cyclops, Polyphemus. He trapped us inside of his cave, and he was going to eat all of us. When we eventually escaped by crafting a large log into a spear, we stabbed him in the eye so he was blinded, and we left. Now, it turned out that Polyphemus was Poseidon's son. So now I had made a new enemy in Poseidon, and this would come back to haunt me later. Of course, we went to so many places after that because of my crew's blatant stupidity. You see, we were gifted a bag of wind from the wind god. And when we were almost home, one of my crew members opened the bag of wind, just like I had told them not to, and it blew us far from our home in Ithaca. So we ended up having to go to many other islands as well along the way home because we had to retravel the entire trip on a whole different route.
And where were some of the places that you visited?
Well, as I said, we visited many, many places, and not a lot actually happened on any of those smaller islands except, the usual few people dying here and there. We eventually found ourselves on Circe's Island, where we stayed several years until we could not take the homesickness much longer. We literally had to go to Hades and back before we ended up home. And many other struggles came along as well. For instance, one day we were watching the herds of Helios when the only rule we had received from him was that we could not kill any of the cows. Well, you guessed it, one of my stupid crewmates killed a cow while I was on the ship. This infuriated Zeus, who eventually wiped out our ship on the way home. When I woke up, I was on Calypso's island with that crazy woman who wanted to marry me, and everyone who had been with me was either dead or missing.
Oh my, that must have been awful. Would you care to elaborate on what happened on the island?
Let's not, alright?
Okay, how did you get off the island?
Well, you see, eventually the blacksmithing god, Hephaestus, came to me and informed me that it was high time for me to return home. So I told Calypso what had happened, and she directed me to a pile of dry wood that was in a cave on the other side of the island. So I took this dry wood and constructed a raft, which I promptly set up and sailed away.
That is definitely a journey.
Indeed it was.
And what did you do when you got home?
Well, when I finally got home, my son Telemachus here informed me that suitors were trying to marry my wife Penelope, that they had overrun her house, were taking all of her supplies, eating all of our bet's food. So we promptly came up with a plan to get rid of them, since I was already in disguise.
Wait. Disguise? What do you mean you're already in disguise? What disguise?
Well, you see, the goddess Athena, some might know her as Pallas, gave me a disguise as a beggar upon returning home, so that any power-hungry person or suitor would not try to take my life.
Oh, that's actually very interesting. Did this goddess help you often?
Oh yes, she was actually the one who made sure that I washed up on the shores of Ithaca. You see, as I said, the god Poseidon was still angry with me at this time for blinding his son, Polyphemus the Cyclops. So, as I was sailing and almost home on my raft that I built from the dry wood on Calypso's Island, he blew it to bits and washed me and tossed me all over in the sea, almost took my life, when eventually Athena came in and put the wind and waves behind me and pushed me to the shore.
Well, sounds like she was quite the partner for your very long journey. Anyway, back to the original question though. What did you do when you got home?
Well, as I said, when I finally got home, Telemachus informed me that suitors were pillaging our house, taking all of our supplies and food, and trying to win over Penelope's heart as if it was some sort of contest. I suppose it sort of was, those awful people. Anyways, so as I was already disguised as a beggar, we came up with a plan to get rid of them. You see, I would pretend to be a beggar in my own house and then slay them all at the right moment. We hid all the weapons in the house so that none of the suitors could use them, and then we had all the women hide upstairs and lock themselves in.
And how did that go?
It went wonderfully according to plan. You see, the first thing I did was to shoot the fat man in the neck as he was going to the door. Then I ironically ripped the strings out of his neck, tied them around his friend's neck until he turned blue. Then
Okay, that's enough. That's enough.
I also nailed him to the door. Favorite part.
Lovely. Okay, that's enough of that. Anyway, what did you do after all of that?
Well, after all that glorious blush. So after all of that, you see, Athena stepped in because we were about to go to war with the suitors' families, as you can imagine would make sense. So she stepped in and had us establish a peace covenant between them, so that there would be no further fighting. Thank you. So after that, the war ended, they went home, we cleaned up our home of all the bloodshed and gore, and then there was no further fighting.
Naturally.
About a year later, I was called to this interview, and now here we are.
Wow. That must have been very interesting. Like, years. Many years.
Yes, it
I don't
was.
even know how many, 9 plus how long it took you to get home.
Don't even know. Took a while.
Me either. So, thank you for joining me here today. It was a very nice interview. It was a pleasure meeting you again. I hope you enjoy your gum wrappers. Those aren't edible, so don't feed them to anything.
Sure they are.
But, for all the viewers out there, if you join me next time, I'll be going down to Hades for a very special interview With a very special ghost. We're gonna stop here. Hope you have a nice day before he dies.
Pretty spicy. Is that I paused for too long there?
At least we didn't get to the gum part.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. What the heck? Is that record?
Okay, on to the questions. So, where did all your sorrow first begin?
Well, it all started. We spent several years until we could not take the homesickness much longer. Crap! No!
No. So, what did you... I forgot the line!
Did you know Odysseus was that handsome?
You know we're recording, right?
Crap, really?
Yeah!
Oh gosh.
It's muffin time.
It's muffin time. Somebody kill me. Oh gosh, that's disgusting.
If I could picture you as like a specific other like Greek person, I would say you look like Achilles
Yeah,
or Hector. One of the two.
one of the two manly guys.